Hey everyone, Mario again, coming at you with another review. As you can tell from the title up there, I did see the Robocop reboot. I actually went and saw it with friends on opening night. Now, I'd actually been debating back and forth whether I'd want to go do it, but a couple scenes I was shown actually made me want to go see it. One of them involved Keaton and Oldman. I'm like, okay, their acting at least looked competent in it, like I thought it would be, so. But then I was still a little hesitant when I saw an action sequence. I'm like, oh, looks like my fears about the PG-13 rating might be true. And after watching the film, it looks like part of what I originally worried about the film is correct. And that is that the rating does neuter it a bit. I'm wondering, I'm looking for my lenses, but oh, here we go. But I will say a couple things about the film surprised me. As a whole, does it fully save the film? Not really. But I can honestly say it's better than Robocop 3. That's not really saying a lot. I would say I'd still rather watch Robocop 3 because I can just get a entertainment value out of how bad that film is. This one, I probably really wouldn't watch again unless it hits DVD if they have an extended cut just to see what they added in. Other than that, I'd probably just watch select scenes. Now, I'll say that Robocop 1 and Robocop 2 are far superior films. But as a whole, this reboot is okay. But okay, bad. I know it's kind of hard for me to really talk about this film. Now, of course, I think we all know the production history. It started back in '05 when MGM first announced that it was working on it. It kept going back and forth whether they were going to do a remake, a reboot slash sequel, a full-on sequel. And, of course, at that time, Darren, I have trouble with his last name, Aronofsky, was attached to it. But because of a few disagreements between him and MGM, he left. One of which I hear was the fact that MGM did not want to use practical effects. They wanted to use CGI. I think probably because of Avatar. Which, I am a little angered about the fact that they said that he left. And from what I understand, he actually wanted to do a reboot slash sequel. And then when we finally get the final film, what do we got? We got a practical suit for the most part. Or at least one that looks like a practical suit mixed with some CGI. It's like, really? You told him no, and then you do this. And then, of course, we got first-time American director. The reason I say this is his first American film. José Padilha. Or Padilha. I have trouble with his name. Padilha. Padilla, I think it is. Yeah, Padilla. I'm just going to say that. This isn't his first film. He's directed 4 other films. Bus 174, Elite Squad, The Enemy Within, and Secrets of the Tribe. But like I said, this is his first American film. That could mean a good thing or a bad thing. Because Robocop 1 was Verhoeven's first American film, and look how that turned out. Hard Target was John Woo's first American film, and that turned out great. Trying to remember, what was Rennie Harlin's first American film? I think it was Prisoners or something. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. I'd say as a director, he did okay. I mean, he directed some of the drama sequences with the camera pretty well, but the action sequences are to be desired, but until I find out more, I'm not really going to hold him fully accountable, despite the shaky cam, and here's why. From what I read on IMDb, apparently he had some minor disagreements with MGM. What they were specifically, I don't know, so that's what I'm saying for the time being. I'm not going to hold it against him. If it turns out there was more and it was more on his side in the wrong, then I will. But apparently, out of every 10 ideas he would shoot MGM during the filming, 9 would be shot down. So that could be a good thing or a bad thing. It's when you find out what the ideas are, if they involve filming or all that. If it turns out he wanted to shoot without the shaky cam, then I want to slap MGM because you did not need a shaky cam. That just distracted from the already slightly neutered action sequences. Because with how some of the action sequences were filmed, you could tell probably on paper you could have made them R-rated. I'm guessing that MGM told them no, we got to make this film PG-13. It has to be marketable. R-rated films aren't marketable, even though the original film was an R rating. I don't know why I gave them an accent, but it worked. Now, the screenplay is by Joshua Zedumer, but I'm guessing he just did the final draft because I read another thing on IMDb that 2 other people were uncredited writers, so Whether or not he just did the final draft, or he did a totally new draft using some ideas from previous ones, I don't know. But I'll say some of the ideas in here are interesting, which I'll get to. I think the problem lies mostly in the fact that the original film has a large fan base, so you're already going to have to please them, as well as a new audience. And the fact of how it's executed. You know, like any reboot, it has some references to the original, you know, like Alex Murphy's partner, last name being Lewis, so they changed it to a black male from a white woman. I kind of like, but he's not in the film that much, and he didn't bug me, so it's not like I'm going to rant on that. And of course, like little references to the other ones, the ED-209s, even though I prefer the designs in the original film because they go with the whole satire thing. Here they were okay, but I wouldn't really say they're a memorable design. Hang on, I lost my train of thought there a little bit. Oh yeah, they do kind of reference I'd buy that for $1, which I didn't think they would, but it's an offhand one. Like I wouldn't buy him for $1. It's like okay, but I'd say it's worked in a little bit better than the Bright Eyes reference in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, aka Caesar was. Now, I'm a couple minutes into the video, and I haven't mentioned what the general audience consensus at the moment is. This is just the day the film is actually coming out that I'm recording this. It has a 6.7 on IMDb. That, for me, is too high. I think it should be at least like a 5.0 maximum, but that's just me. I agree a little bit more with the Rotten Tomatoes score. It has a 67 with the audience. Could be a little lower, because it should not have higher than Robocop 2 in my opinion. I know that's lower than Robocop 1, so I'm at least glad with that. And the critic consensus is 49, and this is what they have to say. Well, it's far better than it could have been, which, yeah, that is true. It could have been far worse. Jose's Robocop remake fails to offer significant improvement over the original. Hell to the yeah on that, because once I was done with the film, I'm like, I might as well just pop in the original. At least that's my thought after watching it, but I will say I was entertained. At no point was I throwing stuff. I think part of this is the fact I didn't see it alone. I was with a couple guys, one of the guys I just met that night. So a couple times throughout the movie, we're doing like riff tracks for our own week at here. Because I can tell you, while I'm on that subject, I can tell you this is probably the least crowded midnight release we've ever been to. I mean, there was more people when we went and saw the Wolverine. Whether you like or hate that film, I guess that tells you. For a Marvel film that was slow. Here, there was only other people. When we asked the guys at the ticket counter, because there was no one in the theater except for the workers when we walked in, and maybe a couple other people. We asked them, does anybody know this is coming out? Yeah, we've only sold 7 other tickets. And there was, counting the 4 of us, there was only like 2 other people in the theater and a couple more people walked in. So we could have probably riffed on it, and they probably would have, depending on how loud we were, they probably would have gone, you keep it down, and they were trying to watch the movie. But it made it a little bit more fun. If I'd seen this movie by myself at that time of night, I probably would have fallen asleep in the theater, which I've never done that, even if I haven't really been a super fan of the movie. Now, I should probably get to the cast. Joel Kinnaman plays Alex Murphy. He does so-so. I mean, I like some parts of it, but I just wish they had gotten a more competent actor for it. I mean, he's semi-unknown. He's done a couple things. Like, most of this is Swedish. He was in Easy Money. Darkest Hour, the remake of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, still haven't watched. He was in Safe House, which I haven't seen. I'm guessing minor roles, and then this is basically his big role. And he just does okay. Let's just say he doesn't hold a candle to Peter Weller, despite that comment he said. I think a lot of you know what he said, that he said he was a big fan of the original movie. But this movie is going to have better acting, not so much chin action. Joel, you were basically doing chin action, because there were times in the film where I couldn't believe your acting. Or I thought you could have been stronger in this scene. Did they use a bad take, or is this the best take? Stuff like that. I will say there are a couple times where I think he sold it very well. Like there's part of the film where Robocop actually does become like how he was in the original film, which it is kind of connected to that whole thing. It's the illusion of free will. So I thought he did that okay. He did get the movements a little right. And his voice isn't as digitized as it was in the trailer. The moment I'm like that, I'm like, least there's that. That is a bonus. And he does carry himself okay, like with him interrogating, but he's nowhere near as good as Officer Duffy. Have a seat. You sold us out, Officer Duffy. Where is Kane? No, not as good as that. Then again, it's kind of hard to beat that. Other people have tried playing that same Alex Murphy and they failed. I'd say, though, he does do a better job than Burke did. But, you know, depending on who you ask, that's not saying much. Gary Oldman is Dr. Dennett Norton, the chief scientist at Omnicorp who creates Robocop. He did a pretty good job. I will say, of the performances of his, I've seen this is not his best one, but for how the character is written, he does a pretty good job. And I have to say, I'm actually glad they made him the character at Omnicorp that you actually like. Because every other character at first you might like, but as the film goes on, you want to smack them. But him, I actually suspected at first, because of the whole free will thing, that he might be a character I didn't like. But as the film was going on, I'm like, I know I might actually like this guy. And in the end, I actually like the little twist of this character. I'm like, that's pretty good. Of course, Oldman should be in better movies, but you know, with his Academy Award nomination a couple of years ago, he probably is still going to get a lot of roles. But here, I thought he did decent. As did Michael Keaton. It's good to see him on the big screen. And he's basically, his character is basically a combination of Dick Jones and Bob Morton. And a little bit of the old man in there, too, because he owns the company. He's an entrepreneur. He's sort of young, sort of not. And he's likable at first. He's not like Dick Jones, where the moment you see him and he says the whole thing about glitch, you want to smack him. It's where the second act, in the second act you start to dislike him a little bit, but it's where the second act and the third act interact that you really start hating him. At least I did. I already knew he was going to be like this. I just want to see how the film built it up. And Keaton does a pretty good job. And of course, that scene we see in the trailers, the whole tactical thing, it actually is dragged out a little bit more with a cameo by the original Robocop outfit. On the whole, he should also be in better movies. Murphy's wife is played by Abbie Cornish, which I don't even recognize that name off the top of my head. I have to say, I thought she did a better job with her role than Kinnaman did with his. Granted, he could have gotten a better actress. Maybe it was the direction, maybe it was her lines or all that. But not as good. She has more to work with than the original wife actress does, but the original wife actress just seemed more believable in the brief scene she was in than this actress did. But she did play decent, at least for what she had to work with, because the circumstances are different, which I'll get to. Other stuff she's been in, she has a longer career. I'm looking for stuff that I recognize. A Good Year, Elizabeth the Golden Age, Bright Star, Legends of the Guardians, The Owls of Gaul, Sucker Punch, A Sweet Pea. Oh, that's why she looks familiar a little bit. He was in Seven Psychopaths, which I still need to watch, and The Girl. Anyway, then we got Jackie Earle Haley as Rick Maddox, who is the military tactician responsible for training Robocop and the normal drones we've seen. Not the best performance I've seen from him, but he did a good job. And I have to agree with something Jeff said in the final act. I'm like, come on, shoot him, shoot him. Because the guy is just so smug and arrogant, not like overly just the right amount, that you really want to see Robocop get him. He doesn't, but it's kind of like a, for lack of a better thing to compare to, like a Dredd moment, like in the movie Dredd when Dredd's out of ammo and he's like holding his hand up. It's kind of like that. Only that scene came off a lot better. And I don't know what else to say about him. Oh yeah, I thought he did better here than he did as Freddy. Alex's former partner Lewis is played by Michael K. Williams, and he did okay for what he had to do. But nothing much else to say about him. Jennifer, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, who played the head of Omnicorp's Legal Affairs. Yeah. There's probably the worst actress in the movie, that's probably her. If I'm talking about the right one. The kid that played Murphy's son, he barely has any lines. He's just sitting there looking catatonic, but apparently he went through shock because he actually witnessed Murphy's explosion from the top of the room, or at least saw the aftermath, so I could expect a shock thing. So at least seems semi-believable as a shock victim, but I just say, even though we only see him in flashbacks in the original films, that kid did a lot better. Marianne Jean-Baptiste is Karen Dean, the Detroit City Chief of Police. For what little she's in the film, she's okay too. She's an Academy Award nominated actress for the movie Secrets and Lies. And let's see what else she was in. The 24-Hour Woman. She was in the show Without a Trace. Episode of Sons of Anarchy. So she's been on stuff. And then, Academy Award nominated actress, so I know she can act, but probably, like I said, probably some of the direction, probably some of the interference, and then in the end, probably a little bit of the script. And of course, I haven't mentioned him yet. Samuel L. Jackson is Pat Novak, the host of the Novak Element. He did a good job. He goes a little over the top at times, but he's playing a news guy. So I kind of expected it in this, especially with how the news segment is done. His character, I didn't know at first whether I was supposed to like him or not, but as the film went on, I really hated him. And I have to say, this is the part of the film that kind of did surprise me. There is a little bit of satire in this film. And it is satire in modern day, kind of like how the original Robocop was spoofing the consumerism of the 80s. This one is more spoofing the political climate of today. The whole drone situation, whether or not we would allow drones used on American citizens, on American soil. The whole police corruption thing, and also a little bit of the biased media. That's where Novak comes in, because as the film goes on, you can really tell this character is biased as you know what towards Omnicorp. And of course, it concludes at the end with him getting all patriotic. And another thing that surprised me is they actually let Samuel L. Jackson say at least one motherfucker. But of course, playing with the whole parody, joke of the fact that he's saying it on TV, it is bleeped out. Which I didn't expect to at least hear it even once, considering that it's a PG-13 rating. I know you could at least get away with one in that, but I didn't expect it. The moment I heard it, I'm like, wow, and then it followed up with another word that they beeped out, which I think was the S word, but I think it fit the tone of the scene, especially with how Samuel L. Jackson's doing it. Because you know how Sam Jackson gets when he's doing that. How he inflects his voice. And as for scenes that show how biased he is, it starts when you see the interview he does of Michael Keaton's character, and then the character in the Senate who's against allowing robots on American soil to be used. And it's interesting. Now, another idea I liked is that they actually did play with the whole humanity aspect of Murphy in a slightly different way, which I appreciate that. Now, it is kind of ruined a little bit by the acting, but it's one of those instances where, at least for one viewing, it does draw me in a little bit with the story. But it just could have been executed way better, like for instance, if this guy was playing Murphy, because apparently one of the guys they offered the role of Murphy to before they offered Joel was Michael Fassbender, and I could totally see him playing Murphy far better. The other option they got, it would be a little weird, and then that's Russell Crowe. That would have been weird. Yo, move. Yeah, move, creep. This is PG-13 crap sucks. Are you people not entertained? Go back to Krypton. Would have been a little weird. I could have seen it better with Fassbender, but that's just me. And of course, the whole play with free will thing. Let's just say they could have added a few. It's not done like how I envisioned they should have done it with Robocop 2, but it is done in a way that you really want to see Murphy overcome it, or at least I did, but this is just one of the few high points of the film for me. But combined with everything else, those few things about the film I like don't really save the film a lot, like I said, for me wanting to watch it again. The stuff that keep me entertained, and also the fact that I was with other people kind of helped. It just seems like there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that contributed to the film. Probably, like I said, the script's probably being rewritten so many times. All the delays from 2005 to now, 9 years it took you to get the film to theater. Jose being a first-time American director and that little thing with MGM. A miscast for Robocop, in my opinion. And just all that stuff combined. I will give it, like I mentioned, I do give it props. I did find the satire that I noticed funny. I did like that they did play with Murphy's humanity a little bit. I do like that they did use a little bit of practical effects at times. I mean, the one moment when when I saw it, I'm like, okay, that definitely has to be CGI used. Is a scene where we actually see what is left of Murphy's human body, which I was a little surprised. I thought they were just going to add it on to the rest of it. I did like that they at least used the original color designs of the suit in the beginning and at the very end. I wish they hadn't made him black throughout the rest of the thing, but it seemed like they did that as a satire of, people don't know what they want until you show it to them, stuff like that. But like I said earlier, I would just rather pop in the original film. Now, when this hits DVD, I'm probably not going to buy it, but I will probably, depending on the special features, I would be interested in hearing some stuff about it. But I'll just say, at most, it's probably worth a rental if you're not so sure about it. If you're interested, if the trailers and all that interested you, then all means go watch it and make up your own mind. But if you're hesitant about it, I'd say wait for DVD or Blu-ray to watch it. As for a rating, find this hard, but based on the few things I do like about it, I'd say 2.5 out of 5 or 2 out of 5. It's hard for me to pick which one. Probably if I watched the film again, I'd be more certain, but I'm not going to go watch that film again. At least not right now. Although current rating, I'll just give it a 2.5 out of 5. And like I said, better than Robocop 3, as in from production values, but for entertainment value, I'd rather watch Robocop 3.